Talk with Tom Murphy of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette and Whole Hog Sports. Tom, I think one of the things that Dave touched on in the post-game press conference that you were a part of was the starting pitching is still a question mark. And while you were able to get a big-time series win on the road in Oxford, when do you how quickly do they need to solidify this starting pitching and really just the pitching overall for this team to make a run to the College World Series?
Hey, good morning, guys. What in the sandhill did I trip into with lightsabers and Anakin in the lava? That was bizarre.
Wakes you up this morning, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a concern, but I think what Arkansas is showing is that this is a team that's going to be remembered. Just being scrappy. I mean, there's some batting averages that aren't great. There's some guys who have a game like Brady Slavens did, 0 for 5, but then drive in 2 runs right when it counts. There's a lot of that going on, and there's a lot of really strong long relief, although there wasn't much relief at all yesterday until Kevin Kopps in the 8th and 9th. But I don't know. They're just patching things together. Cole Ramage got roughed up in the second game of the doubleheader on Saturday, and he's pitching against UAPB. I mean, there's a lot of guys that need to get back on track. And maybe Connor Nolan coming back will spark some guys here in another week, and maybe he gets a shot, maybe on midweek games to start, and then see if maybe it's time to get him back in the rotation, because they can't keep going 3 innings or 4 innings with the starter and then having to tax their bullpen like that. But it's been amazing. They haven't lost a 3-game series against the same team in a long time, going back to the end of 2019 against Texas A&M. So despite the warts that we see on this team, they're pretty solid.
Tom, I found it peculiar when I was listening to Phil on the broadcast. That was the first time they'd won in Swayze since 2010 in a 3-game series, not just winning a game, but that was surprising. But Mike Bianco's gotten the better of Dave in the regular season, not so much postseason. But when you think about what Arkansas has been able to do, you sweep Mississippi State, top 5 team. Then you beat Ole Miss, you run Mississippi, as Christian Franklin says. I mean, how significant early on is Arkansas's winning against some of the better opponents, not just in Southeastern Conference, man, but in college baseball overall?
Well, it's very significant for a few reasons. One, if they're going to assign these regionals and super regionals in May, the more of these you stack up, series wins, the more it's going to concrete you a top 8 position. And if you could get that, then you're hosting super regionals. And you could have a bad couple of weeks at the end of the year and get beat in your first game in the SEC tournament, and you still got that spot. Not that I'm saying that's going to happen, but that's the importance of these. And I had a note today that this is the first time since 2010 that Arkansas has won road series at Ole Miss and Mississippi State in the same year. And in that year, they also swept at Mississippi State and won 2 of 3 at Ole Miss. It has been hard for Arkansas to beat Ole Miss in a series, and even at home, other than that super regional a couple years ago, which is a wild series with 3 blowouts. But Arkansas fans, in my view, seem to get worked up over how Ole Miss fans get worked up. And there just seems to be a little bit of bad blood in the rivalry, which to me, hey, man, that amps it up.
It fuels it, man.
And I think Phil was pointing out that the fans were jeering when the home plate umpire, who did have kind of a wandering zone, got hit in the face with a ball that kicked off a glove or a bat or something and hit him in the face. And, Phil didn't like that. So, yeah, nice to get out of Oxford with a win, that's for sure.
Phil does not like Ole Miss fans. There's no question about it. We're talking with Tom Murphy this morning. We'll talk some Masters. We'll talk all things Arkansas sports coming up with Tom. But, Tom, you brought up the super regional and the regional hosting aspect, and that was something I was going to get to. I mean, barring a collapse this next month, is Arkansas pretty much a shoe-in for those hosting both the regional and the super regional?
Well, you don't want to start losing home series. They got an A&M coming up, and I know South Carolina's on the road coming up pretty soon, and, you still got Florida, although that one will be, after the regionals are decided. The dates are a little bit sketchy in my head.
Yeah,
but
Florida's the last series, so yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's some tough series coming up. They don't play Vanderbilt, and those guys look like they're so tough to beat. And I have not examined in the numbers as to how Georgia went in to Nashville and won this weekend, but they blew them out in game 1 and then won game 3. So it shows that, even a team that you think of almost, invincible in a 3-game series can be taken down. So for Arkansas, I think this. Try to get guys who are in a little bit of slumps to get going. Get Zach Gregory healthy. I don't think you have to rush him back to make sure you got your good depth. And then try to figure out how to get 5 innings out of each of your weekend starters. And if they can do those things, they're going to be a tough out because they hit up and down their lineup and they work pitchers. I mean, that's the thing about the Gunnar Hoagland start is he dominated them for 5 innings. I mean, he had a no-hitter going into the 5th or the 6th. But they had worked his pitch count up with a lot of foul balls. And Ole Miss did the same thing to Arkansas. But Arkansas just happened to jump on the bullpen in that game. And that was a critical one, getting game 1. And then despite all the wildness of yesterday, they win 18-14.
Thomas Clay, just speak a little on the poise that you saw from Arkansas, especially the head coach, when Ole Miss's emotions and a penchant for becoming a hot dog at any minute, and the head coach losing his cool, and just maintaining their approach for 9 innings did for their chances to win that series.
Yeah, I think, Clay, so often we've been around the game a long, long time, and when you've had an 11-0 lead and then you get tied up, a lot of times the team that had that early lead, they don't have it at the end. I mean, and Ole Miss very likely could have gone on, but for Arkansas, as you heard Dave on the Zoom last night say, they went up and down the dugout and say, hey, we're okay. There's 2 innings left. Let's just win these 2 innings. Because, as he put it, you're going, how did that happen? How often have we seen an 11-0 lead lost? I don't know if I've ever seen it. So great poise by those guys. Players keeping their heads into the game and into the at-bats. Christian Franklin, good point. After the Brady Slavens 2-run double, they add on another after Franklin gets down 0-2 and just gets something he can handle and drives in center field for another run. So just good job keeping their stuff together.
Where that puts them winning 5 out of 6 in the state of Mississippi, I think they own the state now, and I believe they're just going to move the Mississippi River 120 miles, and they'll just annex
Clay, Tom,
Mississippi.
Didn't you hear?
At least all baseball parts of Mississippi.
Hunter's having to pay property taxes, guys.
To win those 2 series against those 2 teams has got to put them in a great position for the rest of the season.
It does. It just gives you a head up on all the tiebreakers of those 2 teams, and because they're your 2 biggest rivals. I mean, Alabama's playing better baseball. They're a solid team, but I don't know if they've got the gumption to get up there and stay there toward the end. Also, this has been a nice year for Arkansas over Mississippi and everything, right? Football, men's basketball, and women until the SEC tournament, and then now baseball. So, kudos. They're coming back and pounding the Mississippi boys.
Tom Murphy with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, let's go back to a place you know well, Georgia, Augusta. Clay and I were reflecting on Hideki Matsuyama winning the Masters this past Sunday. And I know you're consumed with Arkansas baseball, but I'm assuming your eyes made it to the Masters at some point. What were your biggest takeaways from the tournament in Augusta this weekend?
Well, I really didn't see a whole lot of the tournament. I'm okay with him winning. I've seen him play before, and he seems like a good guy. I think the guys like him on the tour, so no worries there. But I was when I wasn't watching the baseball game yesterday, I was trimming the hedges. And Clay, I've tilled up my entire garden and I planted tomatoes. Now the key is keeping the deer out, and I don't know if I can do it. If they get me this year, they might break me.
Oh, man. Tom, before we let you go, buddy, Clay, I thought, kind of orchestrated and articulated a great phrase or two about what Moses Moody has meant to the basketball program, and seemingly everything he did on the court was as special as what he did off the court. We got that announcement on Friday. He gave it on ESPN's The Jump that he was entering the NBA draft. Anticipated that was going to happen. Just kind of in a few sentences, from your perspective, what has Moses Moody meant to the Arkansas basketball program?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that he was an unselfish player. A lot of guys who are in his position, who are supposed to be lottery picks before they play their first college game, basically, they want the ball a lot, and they take a lot of shots. Think of Cameron Thomas at LSU.
Yep.
And how often he just kind of gets it and goes. Moses has done that a few times, and not to great effect in the NCAA tournament, but most of the time he just let the game come to him, passed the teammates when they were open, and did that kind of thing. And just a good, solid kid. I mean, I think Arkansas fans are going to remember him for a long time, that his year was a great year for Arkansas, like a renaissance year for the basketball program. And hopefully it's the start of more good things to come. And I think Arkansas fans are just going to be very appreciative and probably think he might have gotten jobbed out of the SEC Player of the Year from Herbert Jones, who disappeared in the NCAA tournament when they needed him.
Tom, appreciate it, buddy. Good luck with the tomatoes and the deer, and hopefully whatever barriers you put up will be enough to hold off those vermin, if you will.
Appreciate you, man. And much to your chagrin, you're probably going to hear about it some this summer. Later.